Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Millennial Revolt, an independent political talk show that seeks to bring a different narrative than the stale one we have going on right now in the mainstream media. So today we are going to be talking about the Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his comments on sanctuary cities and how the Department of Justice is going to begin enforcing our laws that are already on the books. And any state that is found to be violating federal law, they are going to have their federal funding taken away. So there's so much to talk about, there's so much to get into, so let's just jump right into it. During Press Secretary Sean Spicer's daily White House press briefing, Attorney General Jeff Sessions made a surprise appearance. He said that the Department of Justice would be taking steps to not only require that sanctuary cities enforce federal immigration laws, but would also be seeking to get past Department of Justice awards granted to those cities if they refuse to certify compliance. Jeff Sessions said that, "Today I am urging states and local jurisdictions to comply with these federal laws. Moreover, the Department of Justice will require the jurisdictions seeking or applying for DOJ grants to certify compliance with 1373 as a condition for receiving those awards. This policy is entirely consistent with the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs guidance that was issued just last summer under the previous administration. This guidance requires jurisdictions to comply and certify compliance with Section 1373 in order to be eligible for OJP grants. It also made clear that failure to remedy violations could result in withholding grants, termination of grants, and disbarment or ineligibility for future grants. The Department of Justice will also take lawful steps to claw back any fines awarded to jurisdictions that willfully violate Section 1373. He also called on states like Maryland and California to scrap their plans for becoming sanctuary states, saying that would be a mistake. I would plead with the people of Maryland to understand this makes the state of Maryland more at risk for violence and crimes. This is not a good policy." He also said that unfortunately some states and cities have adopted policies designed to frustrate the enforcement of immigration laws, including refusing to detain non-felons on federal detainer requests. Sessions noted that the Department of Homeland Security report out last week showed that more than 200 criminal suspects released in 1 week, despite immigration and customs enforcement detainers. Now, immigration and customs enforcement is ICE, if you didn't know. He also said that such policies cannot continue. They make our nation less safe by putting dangerous criminals back on the streets. And this is my problem with this. There is no logical reason for any person in a position of power in our local and state governments to release illegal immigrants with criminal records back on the streets. How does that keep your constituency safe? How does that make anyone who supports this virtue signaling politician and these people who are implementing these policies because they don't want to follow federal immigration law keep the American people safe? Because to pretend that illegal immigrants don't commit crime, that's just fallacy. We know people commit crime, we know Americans commit crime, and we know illegal immigrants commit crime. But if you have someone who has committed a crime, and you have ICE giving orders, hold these people, we are going to deport them, we are going to get them out of our communities, we're going to make it a little bit more safer so you don't have to deal with these problems, and you go out and release these people, I feel like there should be a penalty for that. I feel like people who are doing this, politicians who are doing this, on the left and the right, doesn't matter to me. This isn't a partisan issue. You should be thrown in prison, or they should be issued heavy fines, and they should be removed from their position of power, because upholding the laws of our nation mean nothing to them. So why should you be in a position of power where you can't even do your basic job? That makes no sense to me. And I say this because this isn't a partisan issue. Republicans don't really want to deal with the immigration issue because they use it as a talking point to get their base riled up, saying that we're going to deal with illegal immigration, we're going to not give amnesty, we're going to deport all these people. Well, mind you, when they are in positions of power, they do nothing about it. We know the Democrats sure as hell don't want to deal with immigration because they need minority votes. because we are their voting bloc. We are the people they go for and target during election seasons because they tend to piss on white people and call them the devil every single chance that they get. So both parties don't want to deal with this issue properly, and anyone who does take active steps to deal with it, they're called a racist and bigot, and we have to constantly be reminded of America's past history and all of this bullshit so we can enforce our laws now. And I want to make this clear, I would never support anything where the government has people going house to house physically looking for illegal immigrants to remove them. One, that would violate our Fourth Amendment. Two, I would never support anything like that. Personally, I think we should grant amnesty to these people who have criminal backgrounds, people who have felony records or anything like that. Deport them, get them out of the country. We don't want them here. But people who are here illegally, but they're working, they're trying to do the right thing, they just came here illegally, grant them amnesty. Get them on the books. Have them become taxpayers. But they also have to learn English. They have to be assimilated into American culture. You know what I mean? These are things that we should be doing. If realistically, you're never going to deport 11 million people, and it's silly to try to think that you are going to do it. And anyone who tells you that's ever going to happen is feeding you a load of horse shit. During President Obama's administration, when he was still our president, he has deported more people than any other president in history. And he also made a rule that said that cities that don't honor the detainer laws put forth by ICE could lose their federal fundings. So when Attorney General Jeff Sessions says this, he isn't the first person to make this threat. The Obama administration had already set this precedent. The New York Attorney General released a statement saying that they would continue to violate federal law, saying that we won't stop fighting Trump's immigration policies, and state local governments have broad authorities to not take part. Now, I'm very proud that the New York Attorney General wants to invoke state rights. I do think the states have abdicated a lot of their responsibilities and their duties to the federal government. But you're doing that in violation of federal law. You don't want to deport people who are in the country illegally, who have criminal records, so you can stick it to Trump while in turn making New Yorkers less safe. That does not make sense. You bite your nose off to spite your face. What kind of retarded shit is that? Now, across America, there are over 300 governmental jurisdictions claiming sanctuary status. Of those governments, there are 106 cities, while the rest are states, counties, and other units of governments. Under President Trump's orders, mayors defending their sanctuary city status are essentially imposing a defiance tax on local residents. On average, this tax amounts to $500 per man, woman, and child. Major cities like Washington, D.C., New York, and Chicago have the most to lose, and nearly $27 billion is at stake across the country. Mayor Rahm Emanuel and Cook County Board President Tony Prickwinkle said that they will stand firm on policy sheltering illegal immigrants after Attorney General Jeff Sessions said that he will begin to enforce federal immigration law. Emanuel has staunchly defended Chicago as a sanctuary city that welcomes immigrants, and his spokesman Matt McGrath said, writing in an email, that nothing Sessions said will change City Hall's policies. Now, given the fact that Chicago has an extremely high murder rate, shouldn't your focus be on trying to drive that down instead of continuing to claim sanctuary city status? So essentially what you're going to be doing is screwing over your residents, having your federal funding pulled back because you don't want to follow the laws of our country. That's smart. The administration's plan to deny federal funds to cities that are standing up for their values is unconstitutional, and Chicago is proud to stand with 34 cities and counties across the country in asking a federal court to prevent the federal government from illegally withholding federal funds, McGrath wrote. Now, when each of these cities accepted federal funding, it was an understanding that you would follow federal law. They all knew this. They said nothing when President Obama was enforcing federal law and deporting people. And now that Trump is in office and he is following federal law again, and has the Attorney General following it as well, and deporting people who have criminal backgrounds. They have a problem. This is the stupidity I don't understand. McGrath did not say how much DOJ funding that Chicago stands to lose, or whether the city would stop spending that money in anticipation that it might have to be repaid. Preckwinkle spokesman Frank Schuftman said in an email, "As for General Sessions' statement today, let's be clear that we cooperate with other government entities to the extent required and permitted by applicable law. Persons arrested are routinely processed and information entered into the appropriate database, but in the absence of criminal warrants, we do not detain anyone after a judge determines that he or she should be released. To do otherwise would subject the county to liability for unlawful detention and infringe upon the individual's rights. Most importantly, we are not agents of the federal government and are not going to do the job of federal agents. As such, and despite their threats made by General Sessions today, our position on ICE detainers remains unchanged. We believe it is appropriate for ICE to carry out its responsibilities through its own due diligence, but any effort by the President or members of his administration to compel localities to aid in federal immigration enforcement threaten the safety of our residents and, in our view, violate constitutional law." Well, wouldn't it threaten the safety of your residents if you're releasing illegal immigrants who have criminal backgrounds back into the general public? I mean, the statement makes no sense. I completely understand you not detaining people without a warrant or you have no reason to detain them. Fine, I'm cool. I understand that. But if you have someone who is an illegal immigrant, and I make this clear, who has a criminal background, wouldn't your community be better off if you take these people off the streets? That's all I'm saying. According to a report from the Department of Homeland Security, during the week of January 28, 2017 through February 3, 2017, ICE ordered 3,083 detainers across the nation. Only 13 of them were in Cook County. Besides Chicago and Cook County declaring sanctuary status, Evanston and Oak Park have sanctuary ordinances. Melrose Park is in the works. President Trump signed an executive order in February prompting a DHS crackdown of sanctuary cities. A number of school districts around the country have filed a lawsuit in an effort to get ahead of funding cuts. A recent Harvard-Harris poll showed that 80% of Americans believe local authorities should comply with federal immigration agents by detaining and turning over criminal illegal aliens. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Are these mayors and are these attorney generals and are these governors going to dig in their heels and risk losing federal funding? I don't think they are, but we shall see. I'm the Millennial Revolt. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you have a wonderful day. Bye.